sure you've heard it said, trust the process. Unfortunately, they are right. But what most don't add on to that is the suffering that goes along with it. Or they'll say something cheesy like, no pain, no gain, or just learn to love the pain. Well, I will say I'm one of the ones who does not love pain or suffering, but I have learned to embrace it, and I'm going to talk to you today about my various views of suffering, how I define it, physical versus mental, and the pros and cons to embracing suffering. If you're one of the people who are keeping track of my progress and goals, but I have posted my goals for this month of October, so say prayers for me to be able to get this accomplished. I have to start off by saying, first, I do not like suffering. I do not like pain. I don't even like being in discomfort. However, it's something that I just have to accept because I chose to try to become better. And unfortunately, the whole thing about in order to improve, you have to get out of your comfort zone is true, and there's no way around it. When it comes to suffering, I don't so much mean the physical pain because you can adapt to that and it gets easier. It's mental suffering, the mental stress that comes along with it. That is the hardest, and personally for me, the reason why I fail constantly gaining weight when I have lost so much already, or why I have used nicotine or alcohol to try to numb the pain or distract myself from the various kind of suffering that is required for the path that I want to do. So, like any other person, I try to make it easier and try to avoid the pain. Throughout this year, the one thing that I did realize or come to just accept as truth is that suffering is going to be constant because I do plan to continue to improve myself. And it's kind of like a lot of people who like beer. I personally don't. They say that beer is an acquired taste, and pretty much it's just you keep drinking it until you learn to like it. It's pretty much the same process from how I understand. I just don't ever plan to do that with beer. For me, my end goals and where I want to be is worth the suffering, discomfort, and pain that it requires. As most things in life, everything has some positives and negatives depending on what choices you make. And the choice to improve your life and pretty much start changing things is going to have some negative consequences that will cause suffering and will have to make you question whether it's worth it in the end or not. One of those things for me personally is you will most likely lose people from your life. Yes, overall it's a good thing because these people are shown to not be supportive and not wanting the best that is for you. But sometimes it's going to be someone who you're really close to and felt like, okay, they have my back, they got me, but they might not like what path you're going down. If it is truly good for you and it is helping you grow to become more your true self, then you have to let them go. Now, if they're trying to be helpful and critiquing, take that into account and look at the bigger picture. But you have to be okay with learning to let go of people, and that's going to hurt a lot. It's going to be a very unique kind of suffering. Another unique suffering that I have experienced while going through this whole process and resolution is a financial suffering. Not in the sense of losing a lot of money, even though that's part of the sucks, but having to change my spending habit and not being able to go out as much, having to redirect everything to higher priorities and put off a lot of fun for the moment. And that's hard for me because I like to spend the money I have and enjoy it, and now you have to question whether it is worth it in the long run or not. Keeping that balance between saving for the future but not living for money and only pretty much enjoying the moment of the time. And for a lot of people, especially in America where a lot of majority of the population goes paycheck to paycheck, that transition is extremely hard, especially when that is so connected to your social life. Just know that in the end, it will be worth it because you're going to become more your true self, your true calling, who you are meant to be. No process is going to go painless, but the suffering that you do experience will be worth it. But unfortunately, there will be suffering, and anyone who tells you differently is pretty much trying to sell you something or lying. Now, let me be clear. Suffering is not always a bad thing. Yes, it does suck, but there's actually some good for it. One is endurance, such as having to do homework. Yeah, it is kind of a type of suffering, but what it does is help improve your education and knowledge and gives you the practice and study needed to be able to retain everything you just learned. Another analogy or example would be fitness. Yes, it sucks, and there is physical suffering or the suffering from having to hold on to a diet, but with that also comes the benefit of success and knowing that you are suffering for a purpose, that it is pain that will have some kind of outcome that will be beneficial to you. Another way to look at a benefit of suffering is in the context of relationships. Whether you've been with them for a week or years, being in a relationship with someone is a level of suffering. You have to put down your ego. You have to put down your pride. You have to put the needs of other people ahead of your own. With that comes what a lot of people are searching for, which is a strong, stable, long-lasting relationship. And for that, it requires suffering. Do not take that to mean that abusive relationships or anything are similar to the kind of suffering I'm talking about. I'm talking about one that is not detrimental to your psychological or physical health. Summing up, the overall good of suffering is that it helps change self. And in this whole process of becoming more of who you are, you will have to endure the suffering. But just always keep in mind, it's going to be worth it in the end. And I promise you that you will feel happier. Yes, the suffering does get easier, but it is one of the requirements for it. So let's suppose my view of the world is correct and that we all have a purpose. If so, that means that we should be living our purpose and move towards it. However, we have free will and are able to make whatever choices that we want in this life. And unfortunately for that, we make a lot of stupid choices. For me, that was mostly in my early 20s and mid 20s and late 20s. Let's just say my 20s were a horrible time. Not so much horrible, but let's just say it was a lot of unwise decisions. Because of my own choices and because I got off that track of purpose and being who I truly am, I have to go through a whole process to get back on that track. Getting back on that track will be worth it in the end. However, it's going to require a cost, suffering. Just like if you overeat too much and you gain fat, you have to suffer through working out. Or if you spend too much or you go into debt, you have to suffer working many hours to pay that off. Now, I'm not saying suffer for the sake of suffering. I'm not even asking you to like suffering. Hell, you definitely know I don't. I very much love comfort. What I am saying is embrace suffering and just accept it, because the more you try to resist it and the more that you try to fight back and not accept the cost of the changes that you're wanting to make, then you're gonna have a harder time, and it's unnecessary suffering. I want to thank you again for watching this video, and I hope that you actually got something from this, either a different point of view, a new understanding, or even the best is encouragement to keep on going throughout whatever process you're doing to improve yourself. And I do ask that if you did enjoy this video, that you please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you'd like me to start posting my weekly goals and pretty much do a quick review at the end of the video of how I did on them, let me know by commenting down. Until then, see you next week and be blessed.